As we carry on, this is almost laughable in what's being laid out. 9. In UKOA theories, as a dominion, Australia too is believed to come under the administration of those, quote, world bankers, end quote, despite being supposedly awarded its own kingdom, quoted, at the Treaty of Versailles. Ultimately, the Australian people were supposedly tricked into accepting occupation and slavery through the use of birth certificates which mortgage the individual to the corporation and represent an acceptance of the corporate law. In some manner, this corporation is believed to have ties to the Vatican. UKOA members believe that, as civilians in an occupied country, they have protections under the various laws of armed conflict which exempt them from the authority of police, the judicial system, and the laws of the federal and state governments. 10. Mr. Spires claims to have taken up the vacant line of authority of the Australian, open quote, kingdom, close quote, and has subsequently been declared by his followers as the, open quote, king, close quote, of UKOA. His two books, Realm and Man and Realm and Commonwealth, constitute the central documents of the belief system. Also important is a document entitled, open quote, Timeline, close quote, which was authored by Ewa Kiskonen, open bracket, open quote, Mr. Kiskonen, close quote, close bracket, comma, born, open square bracket, redacted, close square bracket, 1970, and a document entitled, open quote, Bill of Rights, dash, I, close quote, which is of uncertain authorship. The stated aim of the UKOA movement is to declare the, open quote, true, close quote, Kingdom of Australia, remove its members from the authority of Australian law and place them instead under the authority of both, open quote, King, close quote, Spires, and an idiosyncratic conception of the common law. Ultimately, they believe that the Australian government and its occupying forces will be ejected from Australia, and various police, judges, politicians, and so on will be executed after being tried by military tribunals under the authority of The Hague. The interest public officials is a recurrent theme, appearing in videos, memes, and online discussion distributed online. 11. Prior to the involvement of Mr. Kiskonen and, in particular, the advent of the Mr. Spires was one of the many theorists in the Australian sovereign citizen community. His abrasive interpersonal style and claim to be the Australian monarch tended to alienate others and led to him being the subject of considerable ridicule. This changed noticeably when the code appeared to contribute to a sudden interest in conspiracy theories about and concerns over quarantine restrictions. Many individuals searched for answers via social media and encountered sovereign citizen ideology, which appeared to offer an answer to these concerns. many individuals appeared to draw upon the involvement of Mr. Kiskonen, which took the UKOA doctrine and explained it in a simpler, less hostile and more charismatic fashion. His authorship of the, open quote, timeline, close quote, document, his numerous YouTube videos and online commentary meant that individuals could access UKOA theory in a simpler and more entertaining fashion. Based upon the engagement with the material online that I observed in my surveillance of UKOA internet sites, this appeared to be more popular than reading Mr. Spires' books. There's the little comma on the end of Spires there, which are voluminous, poorly written, arcane, and somewhat convoluted. Conversations I have had with members of UKOA tend to reference the works of Mr. Kiskonen more frequently and specifically than those of Mr. Spires. The latter are revered, but it is unclear how many followers of the UKOA have read them in any detail. Totally bizarre. I'm like, thank you and thank you. As a dominion, how did Australia get this status as a dominion, Mr. Matthew Reason? See, we had this constitution, right? And at clause 8 of this constitution, there were colonial boundaries, whereas the states previous to this 1901 date, they were colonies, and they had colonial boundaries that were detailed in the Colonial Boundaries Act, which was then subsequently repealed at the time of the formation of the Constitution Act, because it's part of the Constitution Act, at which clause 9 holds the Constitution, at which the schedule links Almighty God to the preamble that's found at the beginning of that act. A kingdom is something that is fought for by those that died, 62,000 plus 2,500 Aborigine plus over 2,000 Maori, all sacrificed life and limb for the very premise of freedom that came with what was introduced at the Treaty of Versailles, allowing an independent and sovereign nation to join the League of Nations, which then led to an Imperial Conference 1926 and then Statute of Westminster 1931. Your answers are right in front of you, and you can deny them all you like. That's just the facts that are laid out on the table. The Bill of Rights applies through New South Wales in Acts, Application Acts, as it does in every other state. There is an ideology here that is very skewed from what is actually presented at law, because we're not talking about an opinion here. There's a police officer that has taken it upon him and his team as a part of State Protection Squad, working to protect the state of New South Wales, filing on behalf of the state of New South Wales, as demonstrated by the title of the case, put very strongly a position down in the Supreme Court. You're trying to attribute this to some sort of hostile action, which could be construed as laughable, given that the hostility has been clearly demonstrated to have come from the state.